see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I see babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll know much more than I'll ever know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. All right. Hi, grade sixes. Welcome to your next song on the ukulele. Today we're going to be looking at a very classic song sung by Louis Armstrong called What a Wonderful World. And this is going to be our last song for this part of the term. So let's get straight into it. And we're going to just focus on verse number 1 and verse number 2 today because they're practically the same thing, just with something small at the end. But what's really going to come in is this finger style stuff. So I hope you're ready. What we did for that reggae strum is going to have prepared you mentally and also physically to be able to play this. But now we're going to bring in the finger picking style that we had in our African rhythm, but just spice it up a little bit, okay? So let's zoom in onto the ukulele and see what I'm doing. So starting up, this is going to be our picking pattern. We're going to go down, 2, 3. We're going to play the G, C. I'm holding a C chord in my left hand. 1, 2, 3. All right, so I go thumb, index, middle. Remember, each finger gets its own string. So thumb, index, middle, ring. They all have their own string. Make sure you don't mix them up. Don't bring your thumb to all the strings, okay? Unless I tell you to. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay? Index finger is going to play that. 1, 2, 3, 1. Now, with that index finger, we're going to play 2 notes at the same time. We're going to play the A string and the G string at the same time. So our thumb and our ring finger at the same time. So we're going to go at the same time. Again. Then after we play those 2 at the same time, we're going to come back to middle ring. Make sure your index, your whole hand is free. Don't put pinky plant. If you pinky plant, you're going to have so much tension. You might feel like it's more comfortable, but the tension is going to limit you. So make sure your hand is floating and you're using just your fingers. All right, so slowly, let's try a picking pattern. All right, that's one pattern. That's going to be the main pattern for the whole song. The tricky part is getting that thumb and ring together at the same time. Let's try it again. Slowly, go. Again. All right. So that's going to be our main picking pattern. So let's look at the chords. We start off with a C to an E minor, so index finger on the 2nd fret of the A string, middle finger on the 2nd fret of the E string, ring finger on the 4th. So index finger on the 2nd fret of the A string, middle finger on the 3rd fret of the E string, ring finger on the 4th fret of the C string. Make sure you're 100% accurate with these chords. Don't just play a guess game. Look at my fingers and listen to what I say. So 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret, all on a different string. All right, so C, E minor, same pattern, okay? Thumb, index, middle together, middle, index. Second time, remember, you always come back up. Slowly. Then we take it to an F. Middle finger, 2nd fret on the top of the G. Index finger on the 1st fret of the A. Okay? Make sure that C string is free. The C and the A are free on this F chord. Then we go back to E minor. Okay, so we have C, E minor, F, E minor. Let's try that slowly. Now, one very important thing, especially for those of you who got really used to this technique in our reggae rhythm, where your wrist is down, you do not want to have your wrist down over here. If you do, once you go from that E minor to that F, back to that E minor, then trying to get to a C chord, you're going to have a hard time balancing the ukulele because it's going to want to keep falling. So from the beginning, make sure your ukulele is sitting right over here between your thumb and your index finger. So put your hand like this, let your ukulele fall, and have it holding here so that you don't have to worry about stabilizing your ukulele. The worst thing is when you're trying to play a song and your ukulele is just falling apart everywhere. And that always happens. I always see that happen for people who have very good technique, but they're using it when it shouldn't be used, okay? So right now, keep your secret weapon, which is a good technique, aside, and rest your ukulele here and have it there the entire time. Make sure your thumb is on top. Thumb should never be with your fingers, but on top. That's how you know you're stabilizing your ukulele, okay? So let's try again. C, E minor, F, E minor. After you do that, you go back to this kind of F shape, but we're going to play a D minor. So remember, D minor is just an F, but with a ring finger on the 2nd fret of the C string. So far, middle finger, 2nd fret of the G, ring finger, 2nd fret of the C, index finger, 1st fret of the E, nothing on the A string. That's your D minor. And you do that once. Okay? So slowly it goes. I see trees of green, red roses too, I see them bloom. After that D, you go back to that C. After that D minor, you go to that C. I see them see. Now watch this. E7. Slide your ring finger back to the 2nd fret. You should know this. Alright, so slide it back. We're going to have our ring finger on the 2nd fret of the A string. Skip over the E string. Middle finger comes onto the 2nd fret of the C. So you've made a tunnel with your ring and your middle finger because that E string is running through the tunnel. Then index finger on the 1st fret of the G chord, of the G string. Okay? So the only string that's not being held is that E string. Make sure you have a good tunnel. And the trick is to moving from that to that E, to moving to that E7, you go from C and you slide that ring finger back a fret. And please don't confuse E7 for E minor. They're two different chords. You can't substitute them, okay? You have to play the right ones. So C, then E7, then A minor. E7 always usually goes to A minor because it has a strong pull towards that chord. It sounds like this is the tension, here's the resolve. Alright, we build up tension. Music is about building up tension and resolving that tension. So that E7 has a lot of tension and it's resolving that A minor. Alright, so let's try all of that up until there. So C, E minor, C, so C, E minor, F, E minor, D minor, C, E7, A minor. My gosh, that's a lot of chords. Let's go for it. 3, go. Sky, blue, red roses too, I see them bloom. E7, for me and you and I. Let's try it one more time, even slower. 3, go. I see trees of green and red roses too, I see them bloom for me and you and I. Now after that and I, we're going to bring in another bar chord. It was not in our reggae rhythm, but we've done it before. So what we're going to do is we're going to play an A flat. Flatten your index finger, remember invert it let the booty of the finger stick out and don't let it come down. Stick it out, and then take your ring finger, put it on the 5th fret of the G string. So index finger barring on the 3 strings on the 3rd fret, the C, E, and A. Ring finger comes up to the 5th fret of the G. So it's kind of like you're holding this minor bar chord. But then you take your index finger and you put it on the 4th fret of the E. All right? That's an A flat chord. So ring, index, middle, index. Index is barring across those 3. Make sure you get this chord right. Don't do guesswork. I'm going to say it one more time. Ring finger on the 5th fret of the G. Index barring across the C, E, and A string on the 3rd fret. Index finger. And then your middle finger comes onto the 4th fret of the E. Okay? Right there. Alright, and once you're on this A flat chord, you're going to play this pattern. You're going to play it 4 times. I'm just going G, C, E, G, C, E, G, C, E, G, C, E on that A flat. Make sure it sounds distinct. If it sounds like this, then you're not putting enough pressure. Don't give me that. Press hard. 2, 3, 4. And for those of you who find that pretty easy, then put it the way it's supposed to be. Pluck both the G and the high E string together at the same time, and it'll sound like this. Alright, but if you find that too hard, just go thumb, index, ring, thumb, index, middle, thumb, index, middle, thumb, index, middle, thumb, index, middle. And that part goes, and I think to myself. Alright, so if you're doing this thumb and ring together, then the first note you can just play your thumb. Thumb, then together, 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 okay? And it goes, and I think to myself, again, and I think to myself. Alright, then we go to this D minor again. Same pattern. Then to G7, so that means the shortcut, index finger stays. Take these 2 down, middle finger goes down to the 2nd fret of the C, ring finger on the 2nd fret of the A, make that tunnel. But then index finger on the back side. That's your G7. You should know this one, we've done it before. Let's go from that A flat. 1 through back. D minor. What a wonderful world. And then when you get that C, you're going to play it twice. What a wonderful world. Alright, twice in that C. Then we'll take it to this G, to this D minor, G7. I'm going to call this our turnaround. Why? Because it turns back the progression around. We go back to the beginning. So after that C, what a wonderful world. Turn around. D minor once, G7 once. Then back to the beginning. Okay, that's called a turnaround. In jazz music, in regular music, we call that the turnaround. When you have those 2 chords. Specifically this D minor 7 and G7. This is actually called a 2-5-1 as a turnaround. Don't worry about it, it's just, that's the technical term for the turnaround. We call it 2-5-1. Then verse 2 is the same thing as verse 1. So let's try verse 2. I see skies of blue and clouds of white. D minor, the brown's a day. E7, the dark sacred A minor. Then at A flat, and I think to myself. D minor, G7, wonderful world. Here's the only difference. So the only difference for verse 2 from verse 1 is when you go what a wonderful from that D minor to that G7, then C. You don't stay on that C twice. Instead you go to a D minor again, then C twice. Alright? But the second time in that C you strum it. So, what a wonderful world. D minor. Then C, pick it once, strum, cut. right, let's try it again for verse 2. What a wonderful world. D minor, C pick once, strum, cut. In verse 1, it was what a wonderful world. Then the turnaround. In verse 2, the ending was what a wonderful world. D minor, C once, stop. Alright, so the only difference is verse 1 has that turnaround. So you play C twice, then the turnaround. Whereas for verse 2, you play C once, go to D minor, come back to C, strum, cut. Okay? So let's try that one more time. The chords will be up on screen. Let's go nice and slow just to get all those chord changes. 3, go. E minor, F, back to E minor. Support your ukulele. D minor, C, slide back to E7. Lift up to A minor, A flat, D minor, wonderful world. Turn around. Verse 2, I see skies of blue and clouds of white. The bright blessed day, slide to E7, the dark sacred night, A flat, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. D minor, back to C, strum, cut. Alright, let's try that one more time now with the words. Verse 1 is when we have trees of green. Verse 2 is when we have skies of blue and clouds of white. Alright, so those would be the words. I'll take it nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 1. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Turn around. I see skies of blue and clouds of white. The bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I A flat to myself, what a wonderful world. Alright, one more time. Let's try it full speed. 3, I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them C, then E7, then A minor, the A flat thing to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, A flat, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. D minor, strum, cut. Alright, grade 6s, so that is some good stuff right there. We have some good stuff going on with our right hand. We have a new chord, which is our A flat. And yes, we have a very sweet song that is very iconic and that you can take to any campfire, to any beach, to any friend's party, and you'll remember for a very, very, very long time. So that's the beginning of the song. We just started verse 1 and verse 2. Next week, we're going to look at the bridge and the outro. And then we're just gonna put the whole song together. So really get used to that picking pattern. If you're finding it tricky, what you can do is, instead of putting that thumb and ring finger together like this, you can start off by just playing the ring finger by itself. Get used to that. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this song is actually in 6/8, and it's a very nice time signature to write music to. It's very thoughtful, it's very pensive, and reflective as well. People can be able to think to it. So have fun trying to get that, and really try your best to get it. Remember, if it's tricky, just don't put your thumb with the ring finger, but just start it off like that. That's just to get you used to it. But once you get used to it, bring in that thumb and ring finger, okay? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And remember to support your chord, support ukulele by resting it between your thumb and your index finger, okay? That's what's really gonna allow you to get this really, really good. All right, and that A flat, make sure you flatten that index finger, aim to the right place. If you have dots, use your dots. It's your first dot, that 5th fret. For some of you, it might be your 2nd dot, but most of you should be your 1st dot, okay? So have fun getting that, and I will see you next week. Practice hard.